Ancient texts, often deemed heretical, such as the Gospel of Philip and the Book of Enoch, present narratives that challenge traditional views of human creation. Within them, references emerge to a humanity distinct from what we know today, initially composed of beings of light. These manuscripts, relegated to the fringes of religious history, suggest that original humanity was not tied to the material world but was a direct extension of divine energy. They were not formed from dust or clay but from something far more sublime, the very divine light itself. These radical ideas offer a stark contrast to conventional narratives and prompt us to question what we truly know about our origins. Why, after all, were these stories erased or condemned to oblivion? These texts propose a vision that transcends the concept of humanity as being confined to the physical. The beings of light they describe were pure spiritual manifestations, emanating directly from God's essence. Unlike the humans we know today, they did not rely on material bodies to exist. This fundamental difference reveals an elevated spiritual perspective, where the purpose of existence was not merely to live but to experience the fullness of a barrier-free divine connection. This notion raises a thought-provoking question. Have we lost something essential in the transition to material humanity? The existence of these texts, labeled as forbidden, stands as evidence of the fear they incited in religious and political institutions. They challenge structures that rely on a unified narrative in which humans are frail and dependent on spiritual mediators. This alternative view elevates humanity to a much higher role, as self-sufficient spiritual beings capable of accessing the divine without intermediaries. If such an idea were widely accepted, what would be the impact on power structures? This question helps explain the systematic destruction of these ideas. Moreover, this suppression reflects an organized effort to prevent individuals from recognizing themselves as more than limited beings. When we are taught to accept a singular narrative about our origins, we forget the power that resides within us. These texts invite us to revisit our essence, to explore the possibility of being more than earthly bodies. Why would the divine light that supposedly created us be confined to matter? This paradox is central to understanding why these ideas were considered dangerous. There is something deeply unsettling about the notion that our past was shaped in a way that deliberately disconnected us from a broader vision of who we are. Were these stories of beings of light erased because they posed a threat to systems of control? Or is there something even deeper at play? A fear that if we recognize our spiritual potential, we will free ourselves from the limitations imposed by earthly systems. These questions are crucial to understanding what is at stake. The forbidden texts not only challenge conventional narratives, they completely reconfigure humanity's role in creation. They make us imagine a past where we were more than we are now, spiritual beings, free and directly connected to the divine. This vision not only inspires us but also challenges us to reconsider everything we believe we know. If such ideas were hidden, perhaps it is because they contain truths we are not yet ready to face. The so-called beings of light, mentioned in apocryphal and Gnostic texts, are described as entities emanating directly from God. Unlike us, they possessed no material bodies and existed in perfect harmony with the divine. They needed no food, rest, or physical sustenance because their essence was sustained by the very energy of creation. This perspective challenges the traditional idea that humans were created to live on Earth, suggesting instead that our true origin may lie in a higher spiritual state. It is a profoundly transformative view that prompts us to rethink the purpose of human life. These beings of light not only existed, they were the embodiment of divine wisdom. In their texts, the Gnostics emphasize that these beings did not need to acquire knowledge because knowledge was intrinsic to them. Unlike earthly humans, who learn through experience, these beings instantly understood the essence of the universe. This direct connection with the divine rendered them independent of rituals or intermediaries, such as priests and temples. It is a radical idea because it places original humanity in a state of spiritual equality with the divine essence itself. If they were so perfect, what happened to these beings? According to the forbidden texts, the transition to the material world was a fall, not an initial creation. This fall would represent a significant loss of connection with the divine and spiritual freedom. Some say this narrative symbolizes the introduction of human limitations, such as the physical body, suffering, and death. This prison of the soul within matter would be, for the Gnostics, a strategy of control devised by a lesser creator called the Demiurge, who sought to restrict the spiritual power of the beings of light. The existence of such exalted spiritual beings raises a fundamental question. If our original essence was divine, why have we been reduced to material beings? Has humanity forgotten its true nature? For the Gnostics, the answer lies in the illusion created by the material world. Matter, they claim, distracts and disconnects us from our original divine spark. This is why Gnostic texts often speak of the need to awaken and remember who we really are. This process of remembering, called gnosis, would be the path to liberation. Furthermore, the beings of light challenge conventional religious hierarchies. They demonstrate that connection with God does not require intermediaries, rituals, or institutions. If this idea were widely accepted, the power structures that rely on spiritual control would lose their relevance. Perhaps this is why these stories were suppressed. Allowing people to see themselves as direct reflections of divinity threatens the balance of power that has dominated human history for millennia. Understanding the origin and purpose of the beings of light is not merely an exercise in historical or spiritual curiosity. It is an invitation to reflect on our own existence. Do remnants of this light still reside within us? If so, how can we reconnect with this essence and transcend the limitations of the material world? These texts suggest that by reconnecting with our divine origin, we can recover not only our purpose but also our power. The beings of light, described in Gnostic and apocryphal texts, possessed an incomparable freedom that is difficult for us to comprehend. Free from the bonds of matter, they existed in a state of complete harmony with the divine, unburdened by the physical and emotional limitations we know. There was no fear, pain, or desire to restrain them. Their spiritual essence was in perfect alignment with the creative energy. This total freedom placed them on an existential plane that challenges the very concept of humanity as we understand it today. Their knowledge was not something they needed to acquire, but something they inherently were. They did not learn in the conventional sense, as earthly humans do, but existed in a constant state of wisdom. This innate wisdom made them spiritually self-sufficient, eliminating the need for intermediaries to connect with the divine. While earthly humanity seeks enlightenment through long and uncertain processes, the beings of light represented the pinnacle of spiritual understanding, something lost with the transition to the material world. This freedom, combined with innate knowledge, made these beings independent of institutions or systems of control. There was no need for priests, temples, or rituals because their very existence was an act of worship and connection with God. This spiritual independence is one of the reasons why the texts about them were considered dangerous. A humanity that does not depend on spiritual mediators poses a direct threat to religious and political structures that base their power on collective submission. If the beings of light possessed so much freedom and knowledge, why was their existence erased from dominant narratives? According to the Gnostics, the rise of the demiurge and his desire to control led to the fall of these beings. This lesser creator confined the divine spark within physical bodies, creating a cycle of suffering and ignorance. Thus, freedom was replaced with a system of rules and limitations designed to keep earthly humans in a constant state of dependence. The contrast between the beings of light and earthly humans reveals a disturbing reality. Our struggle for freedom and knowledge may actually be an effort to reclaim something that was once ours. It is as if, at some point in history, humanity forgot its true essence and accepted a state of limitation as normal. This view challenges everything we know about ourselves, inviting us to explore the depths of our spiritual existence. For those who believe in these ideas, the path to true freedom begins with gnosis, the spiritual knowledge that reconnects us to our divine origin. This reconnection is not only a way to discover who we are, but also an act of resistance against systems that seek to keep us ignorant. Recovering this freedom is more than a spiritual goal. It is a revolution against the forces that have shaped humanity in its current form. The history of humanity is filled with moments when revolutionary ideas were systematically erased or suppressed. The case of Gnostic and apocryphal texts mentioning beings of light is no different. These writings, such as the Gospel of Philip and the Book of Enoch, contain concepts that threaten the foundations of organized religions and systems of social control. After all, if humans were seen as originally free and divine beings, there would be no need for religious mediators or authorities. This is precisely why such ideas were classified as heretical and destroyed. The deliberate suppression of this truth is a reminder of how power structures fear human potential. When ancient texts claim that humanity was made of the same essence as God, it challenges the narrative of submission upon which many religions are built. Instead of viewing ourselves as weak, in need of salvation, and dependent on institutions, these texts present us as powerful, connected to the divine, and self-sufficient. To maintain order, it was crucial to silence these ideas before they gained traction among the masses. These writings also suggest that beings of light possessed knowledge that was beyond the reach of any earthly system. This type of innate wisdom made them free, not only in a spiritual sense but also in terms of thought and action. This was unacceptable to religious and political elites, who depend on a population that blindly follows their directives. Suppressing the texts was a strategy to ensure that humanity remained in a convenient state of ignorance, where questioning was not an option. The destruction of libraries, the condemnation of Gnostic writings, and the marginalization of their followers are historical evidence of this repressive effort. The Nag Hammadi Library and the Dead Sea Scrolls are some of the few remnants of a vast collection of knowledge that was nearly lost forever. The fact that these texts were buried or hidden testifies to the danger they posed to the authorities of their time. It was not merely a matter of faith, but of social and political control. Moreover, the suppression of these ideas created a void in how we see ourselves and our role in the universe. Without the knowledge of our possible divine origin, we are taught to settle for a limited view of existence, where spirituality is mediated and inner power is ignored. This systematic erasure was not accidental but a calculated act to keep us bound to narratives that reinforce our dependence on external institutions. Reflecting on the deliberate suppression of these texts raises a crucial question. What else has been erased from our history? If these ideas, which could completely transform how we see ourselves, were so fiercely opposed, what other truths remain hidden? Recovering this knowledge is not merely an act of historical curiosity, but an opportunity to reclaim control over our spiritual destiny and break free from the limitations imposed by centuries of manipulation. The introduction of earthly humans, as described in Gnostic and esoteric texts, marks a rupture in the narrative of creation. Unlike the beings of light, these humans were not pure emanations of divine essence, but creations confined by matter. Made to inhabit the physical world, they were conceived as subordinate beings with fragile bodies and constant needs. This difference is not merely symbolic, but reflects a fundamental shift in the understanding of what it means to be human. For many, this represented the beginning of an existence based on limitations and dependence. The origin of earthly humans is often associated with the demiurge, the creator of the material world according to the Gnostics. Unlike the supreme god, the demiurge is described as a jealous and controlling being who imprisoned the divine spark in bodies of flesh and bone. His goal was not to grant freedom, but to establish a system of obedience and submission. These earthly humans were created not to thrive spiritually, but to serve as pawns in a cosmic game of control. This raises questions about the nature of human suffering and its purpose in the larger scheme of existence. Gnostic texts also suggest that earthly humans were intentionally deprived of full knowledge of their divine origin. By being confined to matter, they lost their direct connection with the divine and became dependent on intermediaries and organized systems to find meaning and purpose. This loss of connection was no accident, but a deliberate strategy to keep these humans under the demiurge's dominion. This explains why so many organized religions emphasize the separation between God and humanity, reinforcing the idea that we are fundamentally inferior and in need of spiritual mediation. The condition of earthly humans is not limited to physical constraints, but also encompasses emotional and psychological ones. Hunger, fear, and desire are described as features designed to keep humans constantly seeking and dependent. These needs, which seem natural, are seen in the texts as tools to reinforce spiritual imprisonment. While beings of light were free from these limitations, earthly humans are shaped by them, trapped in an endless cycle of survival and the pursuit of satisfaction. Even more unsettling is the idea that these humans were created to be functional rather than truly free. This functionality suggests that they were designed as tools, meant to serve the purposes of the demiurge and his system. Human existence, in this context, ceases to be a divine gift and instead becomes an artificial construct. This view deeply challenges traditional narratives that portray humanity as the pinnacle of divine creation, made in the image of God. Understanding earthly humans and their origin in the material world is essential to questioning the foundations of our existence. Are we truly limited by body and matter, or are these limitations merely part of a larger plan of control? Gnostic texts invite us to reflect on our current condition and seek ways to transcend the imposed limitations. Perhaps by recognizing our true spiritual essence, we can find a path to escape the cycle of obedience and rediscover what it means to be fully human. At the heart of Gnostic beliefs lies the concept of the demiurge, a creator who is not benevolent but rather a jealous and controlling architect. According to these texts, the demiurge was responsible for creating the material world and, with it, the limitations we know as part of the human condition. His masterpiece was not a celebration of life, but a carefully designed prison. Matter is not seen as a divine gift, but as a barrier between humanity and its true spiritual origin. The actions of the demiurge are often portrayed as a usurpation of true divine creation. He is described as a lesser god who, out of vanity or jealousy, decided to imprison the divine spark in physical forms. This decision represented the fall of the beings of light, who became earthly humans disconnected from their original essence. For the Gnostics, this story explains why the material world is filled with suffering, injustice, and pain. It was not made to be perfect, but to keep humans limited and subordinate. Moreover, the demiurge does not work alone. He is accompanied by a group of entities known as archons, who act as guardians of the material system. These beings are described as responsible for reinforcing the illusion and keeping humanity distracted from spiritual truths. Their role is to ensure that we remain trapped in matter, perpetuating cycles of fear, desire, and ignorance. In many Gnostic narratives, the archons are seen as the true agents of control, operating at every level of earthly existence. One of the demiurge's most powerful tools is illusion. The physical world, with its distractions, pleasures, and pains, is a trap that prevents us from looking inward and rediscovering our divine spark. Gnostics believed that this illusion is so well crafted that most people never question its reality. We are conditioned to believe that our material lives are all that exist, while the true essence of humanity remains hidden, dormant within us. The demiurge's role is not only to create limitations, but also to shape beliefs and systems that reinforce these limitations. Many religious traditions, according to the Gnostics, were influenced by him to keep us submissive. By offering promises of future salvation or imposing rigid behavioral rules, these institutions reinforce the idea that we are fundamentally inferior and dependent on something external to save us. This view turns spirituality into yet another tool of control. Understanding the demiurge's role in creating the material world is key to spiritual liberation. If the physical world is a prison, then the key to escaping lies in awakening to the truth and remembering who we truly are. Gnosis, or spiritual knowledge, is presented as the path to transcend the imposed limitations and reconnect with the divine. Recognizing the demiurge's illusion is the first step toward reclaiming our spiritual freedom and true purpose. The archons are key figures in Gnostic cosmology, described as the demiurge's helpers and guardians of the material system. They are responsible for keeping humanity trapped in the illusion of the physical world, reinforcing cycles of suffering and ignorance. These beings operate in an unseen dimension, manipulating not only matter but also our perceptions and thoughts. For the Gnostics, the archons are more than mere entities. They are forces that subtly and insidiously shape reality. These entities act as intermediaries between the demiurge and the human world, ensuring that the structure of control remains intact. They use tools such as fear, desire, and doubt to keep us distracted from our true spiritual purpose. For example, feelings like anxiety and despair, which seem natural, can be interpreted as deliberate creations to prevent us from achieving enlightenment. The archons are masters of creating distractions that make us focus on the material and ignore the spiritual. The archons also play a crucial role in manipulating human beliefs. According to the Gnostics, many religious traditions were shaped to reinforce their dominion. They create systems of faith that promise future salvation but keep followers trapped in rituals and rules that lead nowhere. This manipulation not only stunts spiritual growth but also perpetuates dependence on external institutions for meaning in life. In addition to controlling the mind and spirituality, the archons are also responsible for perpetuating social and political order. The Gnostics believed that these entities influenced leaders and systems of power to ensure humanity's subjugation. Governments, economies, and even culture are seen as expressions of archontic dominance, designed to keep people busy and devoid of deeper questioning. It is control that extends to all aspects of life. The archons do not merely dominate, they feed on human energy. Negative emotions such as fear and despair are said to be sources of sustenance for these entities. Thus, keeping humanity in cycles of suffering is more than a strategy of control. It is a necessity for their survival. This view transforms the material world into a kind of spiritual farm, where humanity is exploited in ways we often fail to perceive. The fight against the archons is not physical but spiritual. For the Gnostics, awakening gnosis is the only way to overcome these entities' control. By recognizing their influence and seeking spiritual truth, we can transcend the illusion and reclaim our connection to the divine. It is a deep internal struggle, but also a journey of liberation that leads us back to our true essence. Gnosis, or spiritual knowledge, is the central theme of Gnostic texts, representing the key to human liberation. However, according to these traditions, humanity lost this knowledge over time. This loss was no accident, but the result of a deliberate effort to keep humans disconnected from their true divine essence. Gnosis is not just information. It is a profound understanding of the universe's nature and our connection to the divine. Beings of light, in their original form, possessed Gnosis inherently. They understood the cosmos, the purpose of existence, and their relationship with God without needing intermediaries. When they were confined to the material world, this wisdom was obscured. The demiurge and his archons, according to the Gnostics, created a system of illusion that alienated us from this knowledge and made us believe we are merely earthly beings, devoid of spiritual power. The loss of Gnosis was reinforced by religious systems that placed barriers between humanity and the divine. Instead of encouraging a direct connection with God, these institutions imposed dogmas, rituals, and hierarchies that keep people dependent on mediators. This disconnection has led most people to accept a limited view of themselves, where the divine is distant and unattainable. This perspective perpetuates a cycle of submission and ignorance. Forgetting Gnosis also makes us vulnerable to the distractions of the material world. Desires, fears, and routines consume our energy and prevent us from seeking deeper answers. We are conditioned to value what is immediate and tangible, while the spiritual is relegated to the background. For the Gnostics, this is humanity's greatest tragedy, a state of forgetfulness that keeps us trapped in a limited and disconnected existence. Those who attempt to rediscover Gnosis often face resistance, both external and internal. Externally, systems of power do everything to silence ideas that challenge the status quo. Internally, we are confronted with our own fears and doubts, rooted in the control system. Overcoming these barriers requires courage, introspection, and an unwavering desire to seek the truth. Recovering Gnosis is not about learning something new but remembering who we are. This awakening is described as a transformative process that reconnects humanity with its divine essence and empowers us to transcend imposed limitations. Gnosis is both a call and a promise, a doorway to spiritual liberation and the realization of our true potential. Among lesser-known texts, we find a fascinating reference to a third type of humanity, the humans of fire. Unlike beings of light, who were purely spiritual, and earthly humans, bound by matter, humans of fire are described as a unique fusion of these two realities. They carry within themselves an intense, almost explosive energy that symbolizes both creation and destruction. This characteristic makes them paradoxical figures, capable of transforming and challenging everything around them. Humans of fire are not passive beings. They are driven by an inner force that compels them to question, change, and recreate. In ancient traditions, such as Persian lore, they are described as bearing the spark of creative chaos, capable of dismantling systems and paving the way for new realities. This fire is not a literal flame, but an energy that transcends material understanding. It is both a gift and a responsibility, as those who possess it cannot conform to the status quo. This disruptive nature makes humans of fire a threat to any system of control. While earthly humans tend to adapt and beings of light live in harmony, those born of fire are constantly breaking barriers and challenging limits. They are the innovators, visionaries, and revolutionaries. They do not settle for accepting the world as it is and often become catalysts for profound societal change, even at the cost of resistance and conflict. The creative potential of humans of fire is accompanied by a deep sense of purpose. They do not challenge for the sake of challenge. Their drive to transform is guided by a spiritual connection that ties them to the divine. This connection makes them dangerous to the demiurge and his archons, who seek to maintain control over humanity. The text suggests that these individuals cannot be easily manipulated, as their inner fire renders them resistant to illusion and conformity. However, the journey of humans of fire is not easy. Their energy, while powerful, can also be destructive if not channeled properly. They often struggle to find balance between their passion for change and the need to build something lasting. This internal struggle reflects the duality of their nature. They are creators and destroyers, visionaries and challengers. Their existence is a reminder that true transformation requires courage and sacrifice. Understanding humans of fire means recognizing the potential for change that exists within humanity. They show us that even in a world designed for control, there are forces that cannot be completely tamed. Their presence inspires us to question, seek, and transform, reminding us that within each of us may lie a spark of this creative fire. The creative and untamable energy of humans of fire makes them a direct threat to any system that depends on obedience and conformity. These individuals, with their passion for the new and the different, not only resist control but also have the ability to dismantle established structures. This resistance is not merely an act of rebellion but a natural expression of their transformative essence. To the demiurge and his archons, they are seen as the greatest risk to the stability of the material order. Ancient texts suggest that humans of fire possess a unique connection to the divine, granting them a clarity others may lack. They can see beyond the illusions of the physical world and understand that much of what is presented as truth is, in reality, a construct designed to maintain control. This perception makes them immune to manipulation, a quality that directly challenges the demiurge's dominion. Historically, those born of fire have often been marginalized or persecuted. Their ideas are deemed radical, their actions dangerous, and their personalities difficult to manage. However, this reflects more the fear they inspire in power institutions than any inherent flaw in them. The systems governing humanity rely on stability and predictability, while humans of fire represent the unpredictable and uncontrollable. Even on a social level, these individuals create discomfort. Their disruptive energy challenges cultural, religious, and political norms, forcing those around them to question their own beliefs. This impact can be as transformative as it is destabilizing, as it compels confrontation with truths many would rather ignore. However, this is precisely the unique contribution of humans of fire. They create cracks in rigid systems, allowing new possibilities to emerge. The fear that systems of control have of humans of fire is a recognition of their power. They embody change, capable of inspiring entire movements and reshaping societies. It is no surprise that throughout history, figures who could be identified as born of fire have faced fierce opposition. Yet despite attempts to silence them, their influence persists, often planting the seeds of revolutions that transform the world. The challenge humans of fire present us is twofold: to embrace the chaos that change brings and to seize the opportunity for growth it offers. They remind us that real progress is rarely comfortable but always necessary. As long as there are those born of fire, there is hope for breaking free from cycles of control and paving the way for a freer, more authentic existence. The neogenic doctrine, described in ancient texts and mystical traditions, suggests that humanity is not composed of a single type of being but three distinct categories: beings of light, earthly humans, and humans of fire. Each group possesses a unique origin, purpose, and essence, challenging the idea that all humans are spiritually identical. This perspective is not just theological but also a framework for understanding fundamental differences in how individuals interact with the world. Beings of light represent humanity's original state, a direct connection with the divine. They are described as existing in absolute harmony, free from physical or emotional limitations. Earthly humans, by contrast, are a reflection of humanity confined to matter, destined to live under the rules of the demiurge. Humans of fire, however, walk between these two worlds, carrying within them the ability to create and destroy, transforming everything around them. This division suggests that humanity does not have a single destiny but multiple paths. The impact of this doctrine is profoundly unsettling for systems that rely on uniformity. If humanity is composed of different spiritual types, universal solutions, whether religious, political, or social, become inadequate. This view destabilizes centralized control because it acknowledges that each human type has unique needs and capacities. More than that, it suggests that spiritual freedom and growth can only be achieved by accepting and exploring these differences. The doctrine also provokes reflection on how control has been implemented throughout history. Earthly humans, with their dependence on matter, are easier to manipulate, while humans of fire pose a threat through their resistance to conformity. Beings of light, if they still exist, would be those who could never be controlled, as their connection to the divine is unshakable. This explains why systems of power have such an interest in suppressing any idea that explores humanity's complexity. For centuries, the neogenic doctrine has been treated as dangerous knowledge, hidden in symbols and esoteric texts. Its destruction was not only an attempt to preserve power but also to prevent people from recognizing their true essence. After all, if every person knew which human type they belonged to, it would radically transform how they see themselves and interact with the world. This self-awareness is, in itself, a form of freedom. By rediscovering the neogenic doctrine, we are uncovering a spiritual map that can help us understand our true nature. Recognizing these differences is not a form of division but empowerment. Each human type has something unique to offer, and accepting this diversity is the first step toward building a humanity that is not based on uniformity but on the fullness of its potential. The destruction of ancient texts that explored the neogenic doctrine was no accident but a deliberate effort to silence dangerous ideas. The Library of Alexandria, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Nag Hammadi Library are just a few examples of how profound knowledge was buried or erased throughout history. These texts contained ideas that could liberate humanity from the limitations imposed by the demiurge and his archons. Their destruction raises a critical question. Who had so much to lose if these ideas were widely known? Gnostic texts were particularly targeted because they directly challenged the religious and political structures of their time. They suggested that salvation did not depend on institutions or leaders, but on self-knowledge and gnosis. This idea undermined the authority of organized churches and political leaders, who relied on a submissive and obedient population. Destroying these texts was not just a way to protect these institutions, but also to ensure that people remained unaware of their own spiritual power. Furthermore, the sabotage of these texts reflects an attempt to standardize human spirituality. Throughout history, divergent beliefs have been labeled heretical, and their followers persecuted. This uniformity not only reinforced mass control but also erased a spiritual diversity that could have enriched humanity. The neogenic doctrine, with its vision of multiple human types, was a direct threat to this uniformity and thus became a target for destruction. What is most frightening is how much has already been lost. The Library of Alexandria, for instance, reportedly contained accumulated knowledge from across the ancient world. Its destruction represents an incalculable loss, both spiritually and scientifically. Even surviving texts, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, are merely fragments of a much larger whole. This loss leaves us with an unsettling question. How much of our potential was buried along with these texts? On the other hand, the survival of some of these writings is a testament to the power of the ideas they carry. Despite being persecuted and marginalized, followers of these traditions found ways to protect and transmit their knowledge. Symbols, rituals, and even legends were used to keep hidden truths alive. This shows that no matter how much power systems try, true knowledge can never be completely destroyed. Recovering these texts is not just an act of historical curiosity, but an act of resistance against centuries of erasure. They represent a connection to a past where humanity was more aware of its essence and purpose. Reclaiming them is a step toward a deeper understanding of who we are and what we can become. According to Gnostic texts, the material world is not merely a physical creation, but an illusion carefully crafted by the demiurge and his archons. The goal of this illusion is simple: to keep humanity trapped in a cycle of ignorance and dependence. This cycle is fueled by constant distractions, such as the pursuit of wealth, power, and comfort, which divert humans from their true spiritual essence. For the Gnostics, matter is less a concrete reality and more a spiritual prison. This illusion is not limited to the external world. It also manifests internally, in our perceptions, thoughts, and emotions. Feelings like fear, desire, and dissatisfaction are seen as tools designed to keep us focused on what is fleeting and earthly. This manipulation is no accident, but part of a broader system that prevents humans from perceiving their connection to the divine. The result is a disconnected humanity, constantly searching for something that can never be found in the physical world. The structure of this illusory system is sustained by institutions and beliefs that reinforce the idea that the material world is all there is. Religions that promise salvation after death, political systems that encourage competition, and economies based on consumption are examples of how the illusion is perpetuated. These structures not only distract people but also create a sense of powerlessness, as if the only way to find purpose is to conform to imposed rules. Gnostics believed this illusion was so powerful because it feeds on something real, the divine spark that still resides within each person. Suffering, dissatisfaction, and desire are distortions of this spark, which seeks its true origin. However, as long as we remain trapped in the illusion, we will continue searching for answers where they cannot be found. The illusion keeps us in a state of constant seeking, never reaching true fulfillment. Awakening to the reality behind the illusion is the first step to escaping its grasp. For the Gnostics, this means seeking gnosis, the deep knowledge of our origin and purpose. This quest is not encouraged by dominant systems, which prefer a compliant humanity. However, by realizing that the material world is just a superficial layer, we can begin to break free from imposed limitations and find our true spiritual power. The material illusion is both a challenge and an opportunity. It tests our ability to see beyond the obvious and reconnect with the divine. While it is a prison for many, it is also an invitation for the few who dare to question its reality. For those who can transcend this illusion, the material world ceases to be a trap and becomes a stage for manifesting their true spiritual potential. If there is a central message in Gnostic and esoteric texts, it is that humanity has far greater potential than it has been led to believe. Whether as beings of light, earthly humans, or those born of fire, each individual carries within them a divine spark that can be awakened. This potential is not merely a philosophical idea but a spiritual reality that, once understood, completely transforms how we see life and the world around us. For the Gnostics, awakening this potential begins with recognizing our true essence. We are not merely physical bodies limited by time and space. We are spiritual beings temporarily inhabiting the material world. This recognition allows us to transcend imposed limitations and access wisdom and freedom beyond ordinary understanding. It is like remembering who we truly are after a long period of forgetfulness. The greatest obstacle to realizing this potential is the illusion that surrounds us. The system, with its distractions and manipulations, is designed to keep us focused on the superficial and ignorant of the profound. However, those who dedicate themselves to seeking the truth find clues hidden in ancient texts, mystical traditions, and even their own experiences. The journey to awakening is not easy, but each step brings us closer to a deeper connection with the divine. This hidden potential is not only individual but also collective. When one person awakens, they inspire others to do the same, creating a domino effect that can transform society. Imagine a world where people live in full awareness of their divine origin instead of conforming to imposed limitations. Such a world would not be governed by fear or competition, but by cooperation and the celebration of spiritual diversity. Gnostic texts also emphasize that this potential is not something to be achieved in the future, but something that already exists within us. We do not need to earn our divinity, but simply rediscover it. This completely changes the narrative of salvation. Instead of waiting for something external, we are called to look within and find what has always been there. It is a process of remembering rather than achieving. Recognizing and embracing humanity's hidden potential is the greatest act of freedom we can undertake. It is not just a rejection of the system of control, but an affirmation that we are more than we have been led to believe. It is a journey that requires courage, but also offers an unparalleled reward: the rediscovery of our true essence and liberation from the chains that have kept us bound for so long. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this message touched your soul. But there's still more to uncover. Click on the next videos to continue this spiritual journey. Share your thoughts in the comments, like to support this mission, and subscribe so you don't miss the teachings and revelations yet to come. But remember, once you seek the truth, you'll never see the world the same way again.